Today is Tuesday, October 17th. What to know about President Biden's wartime trip to Israel, the efforts to get more aid to Gaza as the desperation there worsens, and why thousands of U.S. troops are heading that way too. Also, the U.S. House will vote today on its next speaker. Plus, the Biden team's surprising new campaign strategy, how the housing market now compares to the housing market crash 15 years ago, and what record Taylor Swift has broken this time. Those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. President Biden is preparing for an unprecedented wartime trip to Israel as the American ally readies a ground invasion of Gaza. Biden is expected to express his solidarity with Israel and hear about the country's strategy as it works to wipe out the terror group that's based out of Gaza, Hamas. The White House says Biden will also be trying to stave off a worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza and try to keep the war from spreading. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the announcement after a nearly 8-hour meeting with Israel's war cabinet. As the Washington Post reports, Israeli and American officials were negotiating over humanitarian issues. For example, getting already donated aid into Gaza while ensuring Hamas doesn't take it, as well as creating safe zones for Palestinian civilians. And they apparently agreed to develop a plan. Right now, some 2 million people are trapped in Gaza. They're low on water, food, fuel, and other critical supplies. The situation there is dire. Crowds of people who were told they'd be able to leave through a border crossing to Egypt are still waiting for it to open. And they're facing Israeli airstrikes that have already killed 2,800 people. Israel says those attacks are aimed at destroying Hamas. In response to what's been called the most deadly assault against Jews since the Holocaust, Hamas's attack ended with some 1,400 people killed and nearly 200 taken hostage. Israeli officials say a number of Hamas leaders have already been taken out, but also thousands of civilians. Now, Iran's foreign minister said again yesterday that if those airstrikes keep killing civilians, other militias will get involved too. And that's something American officials want to avoid. In fact, thousands of American soldiers and Marines are now headed toward Israel. Defense officials still say they don't plan to put U.S. forces on the ground in combat roles. Instead, they're going to be aboard warships off the coast in case the conflict expands. They could also help evacuate Americans from Israel in an emergency or help with medical support. The U.S. has already been delivering weapons and offering intelligence, and Congress is expected to consider more aid for Israel once the U.S. House can get back to legislating. There's at least a chance the U.S. House elects a new speaker today, allowing lawmakers to get back to business. At this point, the frontrunner is Jim Jordan, founder of the ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus. He clinched the Republican nomination after House Majority Leader Steve Scalise bowed out last week, realizing he didn't have enough support. Though, like the candidates before him, Jordan also had a lot of work to do to win over his party. Remember, all Democrats are expected to vote for their leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and that means Jordan can only afford to lose 4 Republican votes and still win the gavel. So he's been courting his colleagues, promising to prioritize things like a spending bill to keep the government running and more. And several Republican lawmakers who previously opposed him said they have come around and will support him today. Others say they're working on a backup plan, talking to Democrats about a deal to get a more moderate speaker in and give Dems a greater voice. Though at least for now, Plan A is to go ahead with the speaker vote set for today at noon Eastern. Thousands of migrant families who were separated at the southern border are now getting another chance to become American citizens. They were mostly forced apart in 2017 and 2018 at the height of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy, which was later ruled illegal. Well, this week, the Biden administration reached a settlement with the ACLU, which has been acting on behalf of migrants. And under that agreement, the U.S. is offering migrant families who were separated a chance to apply for temporary legal status for 3 years and is giving them the option to make an asylum claim. And officers reviewing their cases will be told to view the trauma they faced as a factor in favor of approving them. They will also be given temporary housing and medical benefits. On top of that, the U.S. government won't be allowed to return to a policy of separating migrant families for at least the next 8 years, unless there's some kind of emergency, like if a child's safety is at risk. Under the current rules at the border, families are supposed to go through a new rapid screening process for asylum and then be quickly deported if they don't qualify. But the program has been expensive and time-consuming to run. So most families are still allowed to stay in the U.S. for years while their cases make their way through the courts. The Biden campaign is taking an interesting approach in its quest to woo voters. It decided to join former President Trump's social media platform, Truth Social. not a place where Biden typically has a lot of supporters. In its very first post, the Biden campaign wrote, quote, "Let's see how this goes. Converts welcome." And so far, every other post has been meant to criticize the former president. Well, it's actually been mostly video clips of other Republicans criticizing the former president. Biden campaign officials say they want to combat mis- and disinformation about their candidate on the platform while also trolling his top challenger. As one campaign aide told Fox News, quote, "There's very little truth happening on Truth Social, but at least now it'll be a little fun." Trump's campaign responded by saying the opposite, that, quote, "Crooked Joe Biden and his team are finally acknowledging that Truth Social is hot as a pistol and the only place where real news happens." It's only been a day so far, but on this platform at least, the Biden campaign has only about 13,000 followers. Former President Trump has nearly 6.5 million. More news is still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. So the reason I've moved away from a daily multivitamin is because I'm now drinking AG1 every day. And AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that can replace your multivitamin and probiotic and really support whole body health. AG1 makes me feel like I'm ready to take on the day, that I've done something good for my body first thing in the morning. I drink it before I eat anything. And I've noticed a nice boost in energy too. I also appreciate that it's easy to put my AG1 into a to-go cup and take it with me, whether that's around the house, on a walk, or in the car. And that it's just one simple, drinkable habit. One scoop of AG1 mixed with water, that's it. Anything that helps me save time and makes me feel good? Yes, please. If you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. Okay, now back to the news. It looks like the housing market is having its slowest year since the real estate bubble burst in 2008. And that's the case even though back then the population was smaller and many more people were unemployed. Of course, it's no mystery why. This time around, mortgage rates are higher than they've been in decades, adding hundreds of dollars to the monthly cost of a home, while inventory is low, which means actual home prices are still rising. The National Association of Realtors says at its current pace, it looks like there will be about 4.1 million sales of existing homes in 2023. By comparison, there were more than 6 million home sales in 2021. So what now? Well, even in normal years, the housing market slows in the fall and winter. And the real estate brokerage Redfin does not expect sales to pick up much next year either, since mortgage rates are likely to stay high. This week, the FBI released its 2022 crime report, and it shows violent crime is going down, especially murder. Homicides dropped by more than 6% as compared to the year before. That's an encouraging sign since there was a big increase in killings back in 2020. And now violent crime as a whole is about what it was before the COVID-19 pandemic and far lower than the historic highs of the 1990s. Even better news, more recent statistics show the violent crime rate is going down even more this year. That said, other crimes are still going up, like property crimes, which increased more than 7% in 2022, driven mostly by a rise in car thefts. And unfortunately, that trend seems to be continuing this year too. It is worth noting that not all law enforcement agencies report their data, but at least this time, most did. The FBI says nearly 16,000 police departments participated, covering about 94% of the American population. Once again, the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in to uphold certain gun rules. The justices decided the federal government's ban on so-called ghost guns should stay in place. Remember, ghost guns are handmade or self-assembled and can be put together in as little as 20 minutes using kits and parts bought online. But the federal government issued new rules last year that say those assembly kits now have to include serial numbers, and anyone who tries to buy one has to pass a federal background check. Since then, gun manufacturers have challenged the regulations in court, even after the Supreme Court signed off once. They argued the rules threaten a long history of legally building guns in the U.S., and one federal judge sided with them, issuing a nationwide injunction that kept the rules from going into effect and allowed manufacturers to keep selling banned kits. Well, not anymore. The Supreme Court's latest decision this week voids lower court orders and lets the regulations really go into effect. Ferrari is now accepting crypto for its luxury sports cars in the U.S. This sets Ferrari aside, since most big-name companies are still avoiding crypto for a few reasons, like the volatility of digital coins, regulation worries, and high energy use. But Ferrari says things are getting greener, and it still has a target to reach for carbon neutrality by 2030. And the company says it's hoping its venture into crypto will expand its customer base. though it might still be tough to reach enough customers who can afford a Ferrari. Prices start at over $210,000 and go up to the millions. The numbers are in, and as expected, Taylor Swift shattered records at the box office. In its opening weekend, the movie version of her Eras tour raked in about $96 million in the U.S. and Canada. And that makes it the highest-grossing concert movie for an opening weekend ever, even beating concert movies by Michael Jackson, Justin Bieber, and many more. Of course, this is just the latest way Swift's tour has raked in big money. She has performed 56 shows so far for more than 3 million fans. So overall, her tour has grossed $780 million, and it's not over yet. By the time it finally does wrap up next year, Swift will have performed on 5 continents for adoring fans all around the world. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, thanks to our sponsor today, Trust and Will. I've had a lot of big life milestones lately, from having our child a couple years ago to recently buying a home. And while these things bring us so much joy, they also made me realize we need to do more to secure our future and our child's future. And Trust and Will made this process so easy. My husband and I recently sat down to put together our first will, and I was surprised by how simple yet thorough the process with Trust and Will was. We really liked the guided format. In fact, it only took us about 20 minutes from home, 20 minutes to have peace of mind for years to come. Each will or trust is crafted to be state-specific and customized to your specific needs. Everything from care wishes to nominating guardians for our child, power of attorney, and more. It also ensures that we've now prepared and organized our documents in one place. Of course, bank-level encryption is also appreciated. So gain peace of mind today with Trust and Will. Get 10% off plus free shipping of your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/newsworthy. That's 10% off and free shipping at trustandwill.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, how tall was Napoleon Bonaparte? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. Simply sign up to get it at thenewsworthy.com/email or find the link in today's episode notes. As for last week's trivia question, which business tycoon is behind the number 5 perfume? The answer is Coco Chanel. It was 1920 when Chanel was working with a master perfumer named Ernest Beau on her first signature fragrance. She knew she wanted a scent that was clean and requested he create something to, quote, smell like a woman, not like a rose. Well, Beau ended up presenting Chanel with 10 different perfume vials with different scents to choose from. She smelled each one without comment, then looked up and said decisively, number 5. And with that, Chanel number 5 was born. It officially launched in 1921 and went on to become the most celebrated perfume in history. All right, thank you for joining us and listening today. We'll be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.